Alrighty, so basically today is the fear of the unknown. And when I say fear of the unknown, I think people may or may not know what I mean by that. And what I mean by that is people are always worried about the future, like what's going to happen, okay? And there's also a really deep desire to want to control it or to make it be a certain way, rather than letting it just be whatever it is. You know, so we do all these things to try and control things or make things happen. Or the thing, though, that I think is really the damaging part is the worry that people have. You know, the worry about what's going to happen. Okay, so you know, especially people like making money or creating something in their lives. Doesn't matter what that is. Even relationship. People do it in every facet of their life. You're worried about the relationship. How about people that are going to get married? It starts coming down that day when they're going to get married, and all of a sudden they get cold feet, and they start getting concerned about, am I making the right choice? You know, what's going to happen? And what if we don't like the same things? Or all the different thoughts that the mind thoughts, you know, the mind train thoughts that we jump on, and we go into a worry. And then what happens is it literally creates like anxiety in the physical body. That anxiety, as we know, is a stress factor, which also breaks down your immune system and other things, and you make yourself sick over time. It may not show up immediately, but it will. The stress levels are affecting humanity because we're all worried about what's going to happen, what's it going to look like. In reality, none of it really matters, just so you know. Okay, I'm really serious, okay? You know, I've done lots of weddings and people get all freaked out about everything being perfect, and maybe they'll skip their words, or maybe they'll whatever. You know, when it's all said and done, they're married and everything's awesome and the past is over. It doesn't really matter. He disappeared. He'll figure it out. Okay, so that unknown stuff, I mean, it has to do with a lot of things, the past experiences. Like usually someone who's had like really wonderful experiences growing up and things were really cool and a lot of excitement and a lot of really wonderful things where they didn't have a lot of traumas, they don't have as much stress about the future as people who have been hungry. People who have gone into severe experiences of lack, you know, of not having a place to live, or, you know, or relationship issues. And then two, people getting, like, for example, people get into a relationship, then if they've had an abusive relationship, of course there's fear and concern and worry about future relationships. And what they don't get is, oh, you're trying to unravel something deep inside, okay? And then also, you know, you've heard lots of the teachings around the isness and accepting things just as they are, and just, you know, being available for the moment and taking life as it is. And yet, I would say almost everyone at some point has a desire or a need, or tries to figure out the future, control the future, understand the future, make it so that they can feel safe, okay? But here's the thing, you know, it's like every day's different. There's no guarantees. So if people can relax into that, and also, I know this is like, this doesn't sound really good, and yet it's the truth. Things are going to unravel based on your co-creation, based on what you hold inside of your body, okay? So if there's holdbacks or if there's energies inside, the reflection of your life is showing you what's inside, okay? So as we unravel things, it's like when we're presented with something and we feel our anxiety around it, or our stress, or our worry, or our concern, that's the doorway in to the subconscious, to the unraveling. And it doesn't matter whether it's relationship or your future as far as your job or your work or your move or your, you know, whatever, all the things people worry about. In reality, I think people worry about almost everything. Right? I mean, really, huh? You know, you wake up and the day goes on, and anything that has to do with an hour from now, a minute from now, 10 minutes from now, a week from now, there's stress. You start stirring it. You start worrying about it. It could be anything, you know. Our guy here could be going to do a camera thing, and maybe he gets worried about who knows what, or not, you know. But the bottom line is there's something inside that's causing it. If we were like in our divine light, there'd be that total faith, total trust that everything's in its divine unfolding. And it's just a matter of, okay, we keep showing up for whatever, you know, for that. So a lot of the interferences have to do with a lot of past lives. You know, it's just the way it is. It's like your journey on your soul's evolution is demonstrating and showing us what are we still holding on to, what's still blocking us, what are our fears, what are we, you know, what's the trauma that's still inside. And you know, like, so things are starting to flash in my awareness. So I'm getting images of people in, like in clans or tribes or families, whatever you want to call it. They're nomads. And times of hunger, like people did die of starvation. You know what I mean? It was very, very common, especially before we came more into this civilization where we are now, where we can go to the grocery store. But I'm seeing an energy, I'm being shown tribes people in starvation. So, you know, not knowing, they go out to go hunting, they go out to gather food, and they're not finding any. And so it gets anchored in that you're not always provided for. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, your whole clan starves to death. You know, and it's like they gave their prayers, they do all these ceremonies and do all these different things, offerings to the gods, everything to save their people, and yet they perish. It gets anchored in. So what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing inside of humanity, what's happened as I'm tracking this is in the very core of people, human beings, and this is what I want to work on. I want to clean this stuff up, this really core belief. But it has to do with the mistrust of creation. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like not trusting God or the gods, or not trusting the guides and those that watch over. I mean, all the time you hear people saying, oh yeah, just give your faith over trust and everything is okay. Well, no, people have died. For real, okay? And it isn't just one or two. It's like all of humanity has had experiences of dying from some kind of elements, or hunger, or like I'm saying, it's like the elementals. Sometimes there's floods, sometimes there's freezing, there's snows, there's different things, and people are dying. People are dying all the time, okay? They can be the most trusting in God of everybody, of anyone, and still they're dying, okay? And they may not be a pretty death. It may be a really scary, frightening, uncomfortable, traumatizing death. So that energy that I'm looking at as I'm tracking all this, because I'm being shown different things, and as I'm being shown a particular tribe, and it feels like this tribe had to have been like different people here were in that tribe, okay? So what happens is you have all this faith, you do everything you can possibly humanly do, and still you watch your beloveds die, you know, people that you care about. And not a pretty death, you know. Starvation is really not very, it's really bad. It's a horrible way to go. It's very slow, but it's very painful and traumatizing. So what happens when I'm looking at inside of humanity is this really dark, black energy that over years, over many, many lifetimes of some kind of loss of faith or actual direct experience of really intense traumas, that there's a really core belief that you really aren't being cared for. You're not really being watched over. Is that making sense? It's kind of like there is nobody that you can totally trust. No human being, no spirit being, no God that you can absolutely give your faith and trust over to, because you've had experiences that showed you you're going to die, and it's not going to be pretty. Okay, now we all know that humanity is going to die. Okay, everyone's going to die. If you're here, that's a given. And how you die. People want to die in their sleep peacefully in old age. But when you die in situations where it's been trauma, such as starvation and freezing to death or going, you know what I mean? It's like okay. So now I'm getting more images of different people here in the room that have had different kinds of ways of dying. I'm seeing someone totally alone walking. I see them have these kind of fur boots on and snow. It's a blizzardy kind of thing, freezing, hungry, but it's not, you know what I mean? It just goes on and on for days, and pretty soon they're laying there and it's like no faith. It's like, wow, And you can feel that there's like a deep sadness in there when you think about that. Like if you ever hear about people dying in that way and you can feel a resonance or you feel a sadness, that's because you've lived it. Okay? So something very deep and very core inside of humanity has no faith, has no trust, and so the unknown becomes something we try to control. We fear it. We want to master it. We want to do something to ensure that we're not going to be in trauma. We're not going to be traumatized. We're not going to be, suffering. And so I'm just looking at the people, but I'm also expanding and looking at all of humanity, and it's inside of all of humanity. Especially anybody who's had multiple lifetimes. I mean, and everybody here has. So somewhere you've had those experiences, somewhere where you've lost faith, somewhere where you've known that no matter what, doesn't matter how much you pray, doesn't matter what your beliefs are, you've had horrible experiences that are still in your energy field, that are still creating a trauma. So what we're going to do is we're going to start digging in, see if we can't start loosening up some of this. Because what we really want is we want your divine light to shine. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have experiences that feel painful, that feel traumatizing, that feels forsaken. That's another one. There's a deep, deep, deep feeling of being forsaken in the core of people. Big time. Okay. So we need to clean that up as much as we can. So, but what happens when your divine light does shine forth? You're not worried about it. You meet whatever presents as it presents, okay? So in this lifetime, let's just say that you are open, you're shining your light, you are in that state of love, and let's say you go rock climbing and you don't anticipate anything, but you're there and all of a sudden you're in peril and you die, okay? But what the difference is you're not holding on to the trauma. There's a part of you that really does know that you've already agreed to have this experience. You've agreed to die in that way. It was already set up prior to coming in. So if you can, yes, this is another thing too, okay? This is the part that always gets me a little bit. It's like, okay, what did I set myself up for this time, In some way, that's what we have done. We can't be blaming God or the soul, the spirits or the guides or the universe or anything. We've already set up certain things to have experiences, to know ourselves in that. And one of the things we do want to know is all the different ways of death, and then also all the different ways of suffering, but also all the different ways of the joy and beauty and passion and aliveness and the juiciness of being here on the earth that you can't get, when you're in energy and you're just awareness itself. There is nothing tangible. So we're here in this tangible world to experience the tangible world. So we still fear it because we've all the past experiences that were traumatizing. Okay, because you know this, we're in the body, we forget. So we forget who we are, we forget that we've called this in, we forget that we're divine beings and that we're all co-creators. But then we become like the victim. But let's go back to the feeling of being forsaken. Has anybody here ever thought they were forsaken? Yeah, I know I have. Big time. Yeah, right after being in Israel, and I went to saw like a lot of different places where Jesus was, and he presented to me and showed me all kinds of stuff. And then he told me I had to come down off the mountain and be among the people. Well, I thought I was forsaken when I came home, because then I was kicked off the mountain for real. And then I had to be with all these people, you know. In my mind, I was thinking something else, but the reality of it was kind of traumatizing. But I did feel forsaken. I mean, that's not the first time, but it was one of them. So that feeling of being forsaken is also really deep. As I track that, that goes like really deep. That's like in the very, very core of your energy field. The traumas, the memories, all the different ways in which you've left this planet are there as well. And the beliefs around that you're a victim, that there's suffering, that it's hopeless, all of that is all around it. But in the very, very, very core is that feeling of being forsaken. So I can see that inside of humanity. So, you know, it's not about trying to fix the future, because we can't, but what we can start to clear and unravel is at a really deep, deep, deep core level of what lives inside of us, or, you know, humanity. So we're going to do a few things. So a couple of them is I want you to just be aware of the thought of the future. Okay, so there's the future that everyone has something that you're concerned about. Can you all feel that in some way, something? I don't care what it is. Maybe it's about relationship. Will I ever get married? Or if I get married, will I have children? Or do I want children? Or, you know, whatever that is, you know, you're in a new relationship and there's concern and worry about what that's going to look like. And, you know, can you feel that? And yeah, so that doesn't allow for you to be your authentic self and meet the moment as it presents. So I'm going to have you think about the different things that you're aware of as far as thinking about the future, okay? But also the feeling, there's a feeling associated with that it has a quality of you want to know, you want insurance, you want guarantees, and then in that you want to try to control it. It's a feeling. I mean, in your mind, you know you can't really control things. You know that. And yet, there's a feeling, okay? So I'm going to want you to light up that feeling of wanting to make something happen a certain way. It creates like an agitation, okay? It has like a frequency to it that could almost be labeled as a slight anxiety, okay? You can feel it? Yeah. Yeah, okay, so there's that. Okay, yeah. Okay, then also the desire to have something happen the way you want it to happen. Am I making sense on that one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's a little bit different than but that desire for something to come how you want it to look, how you want it to be. So when you think about that, okay, if there's something in particular that you're aware of, that you want it to be a certain way, you can kind of feel that inside your energy field, okay? So that right there also creates kind of a feeling inside. It's a slightly different quality, isn't it? But it still has that anxiety, slight anxious, kind of staticky kind of energy that moves through the body. So you have things where you want things to be a certain way. Okay, now how about the ones where you want people to be a certain way? Okay? Think about your friends, think about your family, think about your kids, think about your lovers, think about your coworkers, or think about the people that at the church, you know, different people, how we want them to be different, how we want them to be a certain way. Okay, so that's also trying to control somebody else, but that also has to do with in the future. Okay, it's always about the future. Every moment, every second, you know, keeps going into the future. So there's still a desire to control it, but it's all about feeling safe and secure within our own selves. That's all. What it's bottom line. That's what it's about. We want the guarantee. We want to know that we're okay. We want to go to bed feeling like we got abundance, that we're taken care of, there's no worries, nothing to worry about, and everything's A-okay. And since we have all these past incarnational experiences that show us that it's not always okay, then we have that angst inside, that darkness inside, that forsaken energy inside. So now I want you to think about the times in your life when you have felt like you were forsaken. Does everyone know what that really feels like, what that really means, that feeling of forsaken? It's huge. It's a huge abandonment by creation itself, by the all that is. Okay, so that's deep. That has a profound sadness, like you could fall on the floor and literally cry your heart out and shatter in that feeling of being forsaken. Okay, you know that one, huh? Yeah. So that energy is still living inside of humanity, and in the clearing, we'll be clearing energy, but also there is emotion in there. Okay, there really is. That's the deepest, most profound sadness. It hits that sadness of losing someone through death, for the eternal, what it feels like forever. They're gone forever, but the forsaken even goes even deeper than that. It cracks in even deeper. So we want to let that happen. So during this particular clearing, if in fact we have that kind of sadness coming up, I'm going to ask you to let it happen. I'm going to ask you to let the energy move. You have to let this move, okay? Because it's deep. And in order to release this energy, you have to know it. In order to know it, that means feeling it. And in the feeling of it that energy moves through the body, okay?